This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. We're coming to you live from Manila in Vietnam. Hello, Eliana.
Hi, I'm Eliana Faith Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, giving you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, President Duterte says there's no corruption in the government procurement of PPEs and medical supplies.
A bus set up to provide mobile vaccinations begins operation in the Thai capital, Bangkok.
Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. on Wednesday night confirmed the country has welcomed the first Afghan refugees to the Philippines since the Taliban took control of Afghanistan 3 weeks ago.
Continuing the first webinar entitled Unlocking RCEP for Business, Trade in Goods, held in July, the ASEAN Secretariat, in collaboration with the East Asia Business Council, held a second webinar on 3rd September, focusing on the rules of origin and customs procedures and trade facilitation of the RCEP agreement.
It was a race against time to save lives during the start of the pandemic, which meant there was no room for hesitancy or dilly-dallying on the part of the national government. This was the message of President Duterte during his talk to the people aired on Wednesday in response to the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee's probe of the government's procurement of personal protective equipment and other related materials. Let's listen in.
Do not run the department as if it is a parang opisina lang ng Senado. Do not dictate on siya yung si Doki yung nagpapatakbo niya. Hayaan mo siya. Let them make the programs, then spend the money. Pero wag ninyo na sa aga magtatanong na kayo, may trabaho kayong binigay sa kanya. Natin. Let him complete his work. At the end of the day, kung palpak ang trabaho niya, then that is the time for reckoning. But not before completing the programs of under his department in pursuance to his work as secretary. Hindi ko maintindihan eh. Wala pang korupsyon. Ako na mismo ang nagsasabi. Walang korupsyon. You cannot tell the truth in the Senate. You know why? Because they would not allow you to complete your answer. Yung kalahati lang, sabak agad siguro na. Yun, maputol ka na. Even si Aguinaldo yung kuha nag-testify. Nagtitestify siya, kinat siya kaagad. He was not able to complete his statement. I challenge to kuha to remember that. Makita rin naman. Ilang witnesses na all these years, Gordon, na dumaan sa inyong pinagsisigawan ninyo. Boboto kaya yan sa inyong eleksyon? Think about it.
Meanwhile, according to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque Jr., the price of PPEs presented during the Senate hearing was misleading because it was obtained months after the pandemic began. Let's take a look.
Una, meron bang overprice sa PPE? Ang sagot, wala. Anong ebidensya? Ang binili po natin is 1,716 para sa 9-piece PPE compliant with WHO standards. Ang binili ng nakaraan na administrasyon, 3,500 hanggang 3,800. Hindi po tayo nagbibintang ng 3,500 at 3,800 ay overpriced. Pero kung hindi natin pagbibintangan na hindi overpriced ang 3,800, lalo naman po siguro ang 1,716. Kaya po yung 1,716, dahil ang presyo po ay 1,950 less 12% tax. Ito po ay 1,716. Bukod pa po rito, walang kahit anong down payment na binayaran. Binayaran lang po pagkarating ng PPE sa Pilipinas at pumasa sa inspeksyon at sagot din po ng importer, pati po yung transportation, insurance, and freight. Malinaw po yan. Sa batas po, sa ebidensya, there was an attempt to mislead. Bakit po? Kasi nagpakita sila ng presyo na 1,300 daw po ang PPE. Bakit ko po sinabi na misleading at the objection sa korte niyan, Your Honor, misleading? Kasi yung petsa po ng 1,300 ay petsang Hunyo. Ang pinag-uusapan natin, magkano ang PPE nung petsa ng Abril, kung saan nagsisimula ang pandemya at talagang nagugulanta ang lahat ng bansa sa daigdig kakakuha ng PPE. Siyempre po, dahil ang buwan ng Hulyo ay 2 buwan na matapos ang Abril, dumami ang supply, kaya po bumaba ang presyo ng PPE. Ulitin ko po, kung sa hukuman po yung ginawa nila sa Senado, objection, Your Honor, misleading, and it will be sustained because ibang buwan po ang kanilang pinag-uusapan.
In other news, President Duterte on Wednesday also formally accepted his nomination as the official vice presidential candidate of the ruling party, the Partido Demokratiko Pilipino Lakas ng Bayan, or PDP Laban, to ensure the continuity of his efforts to bring progress to the country. Now, during the PDP Laban's national convention and proclamation of its candidates for the 2022 national and local elections, the president thanked his party mates for their continued trust and confidence in his leadership and for picking him as the party's vice presidential candidate. No words can express my gratitude for your continued trust and confidence in my leadership and for nominating me as the party's official vice presidential candidate in the 2022 elections, Duterte said in his keynote speech delivered in San Fernando, Pampanga. The president also wiped his tears as he expressed his intent to continue serving the country after his presidency ends in June next year. He also said he would be gunning for vice presidency to make sure that his administration's efforts to eradicate illegal drugs, terrorism, and corruption in government would continue to bear fruit beyond his 6-year term. The president also expressed hope that Filipino voters would let him serve them again by electing him next year as the country's second top official.
A new program in schools in Thailand aims to vaccinate children aged 10 to 18 for free with Sinopharm vaccine. Here's Jomerl Baldo from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Hello, Jomerl.
Hello, Aliana. Yes, that is correct. the Chulaborn Royal Academy, or the CRA, has announced a strategy to vaccinate school-aged children from 10 to 18 under the VAP to School program campaign. This move is an aid to help schools contain the virus as on-site classes are expected to reopen soon, amid reports of poor education quality in the online learning setting. Currently, the CRA has been authorized to import the Sinopharm vaccine, while the Sinovac and then the AstraZeneca vaccines are imported by the government. In an interview, the CRA Secretary General Nithi Mohananda stressed out that although children are much more likely to suffer from mild symptoms, they can also transmit the virus to older and more vulnerable people, so their vaccination should not be overlooked. The free of charge vaccine is accessible for students upon the application of their respective school administrations. A total of 50,000 students will be accepted in preparation for the new school term. The start of inoculation schedule is set on September 20th, which is also the date of Thailand's National Youth Day. Conditions for the students to avail the vaccine include they must be 10 to 18 years old, they have never been inoculated with any COVID-19 vaccine, they have permission from their parents, and they have no history of COVID-19 infection and other non-communicable diseases such as but not limited to cancer and diabetes. For those with such underlying conditions, a medical certificate proving their illness and stating that they can be vaccinated will be further required. Most importantly, parents must be aware of the risks of taking the vaccine and that Sinopharm has only been approved for emergency use in Thailand, while the use in children under 18 is still under consideration. Applications are open from yesterday, September 8th, through the CRA website on the vaccine allocation for school menu. The CRA will then respond to the head of school by email on further instructions. The vaccinations will take place at the CRA vaccination site in Chengwatana Road. This is a separate initiative from the earlier report of Education Ministry plan to vaccinate 4 million students with the mRNA Pfizer. Back to you, Aliana.
Thank you, Jomerl, for your updates there in Thailand. Please do always stay safe and healthy.
Please stay safe too. Reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand, I am Jomerl Bundad-Baldo. We live in interesting times.
And staying in Thailand, a bus set up to provide mobile vaccination begins operation in the Thai capital, Bangkok. Take a look.
ต้องไปเสียบบัตรตรงนี้คือก็เป็นการลงทะเบียนลงทะเบียนแล้วก็ขึ้นไปฉีดแล้วก็ไปยื่นเอกสารบนโต๊ะใช้คนประมาณ5 คนเองซึ่งถ้าไปตามจุดฉีดต่างๆใช้คน 20-30 คนไปยิ่งก็จะเคลื่อนที่วันนี้ถ้าสมมติฉีดตรงนี้200เดี๋ยวเที่ยงเราอาจจะเคลื่อนไปอีกจุดหนึ่งไปฉีดอีก200
ได้รับมากขึ้นครับเพราะชุมชนมันยังเข้าไม่ถึงถ้ามีรถเข้าไปอีกสัก5 คันน่าจะฉีดได้เยอะมากกว่านี้
ไม่ได้ควรทำนาค่ะเพราะว่าหนูโดนเลื่อนมาหลายครั้งอะค่ะก็เลย
The setup aims to help vaccinate people living in the more rural areas of Bangkok and shorten the distance people need to travel to receive a jab. The mobile vaccination unit can provide 1,000 shots a day. Bangkok's governor, Aswin Kwanwang, said the plan is to put more buses into operation. Since April, Thailand has been reeling from a deadly third wave of infections with more than 1.3 million cases and 13,000 deaths. The kingdom is also experiencing its worst economic performance since the 1987 Asian financial crisis.
A state-run children's shelter in a suburban area in the island nation of Maldives has allegedly been reported that children are being subjected to physical abuse. Steffi De Juan joins us live. Hello, Steffi.
Hi, Eliana. Good afternoon. Yes, allegations that children residing at the state-run children's shelter in suburban Hulhumale, Fiabati, are being subject to physical abuse has come to light. A viral video is circulating in social media where crowds gather in front of state-run children's shelter, Piyabati, as screams of children radiate from the inside. Police and Gender Ministry are now investigating the matter after crowds gathered at Piyabati asking to open the door and get inside the shelter as sound of crying children were recorded. A child was allegedly heard saying that they were being physically harmed by the group of people. When questioned regarding this, the police stated that they were informed a group of individuals had climbed in Piyabati shelter's wall sometime last night. However, there was no one there when the police arrived at the scene. The police also added they have not received any reports of physical abuse of children at Piyabati by the shelter's employee. According to them, actions will be taken if any staff is responsible for abusing children at the shelter. Human Rights Commission of the Maldives, or HRCM, stated that their investigation department was probing into the matter as it has been brought to their attention. Piyabati in Hulhumale that houses over 110 kids, where the underlying aims is to create a conducive home environment for the children to grow and develop. No children harmed at Piyabati. Ministry of Gender, Family and Social Services released a written statement regarding the incident where they assured that no child residing at the shelter had been harmed last night. The statement read that upon being informed of the incident last night, they had attended to the matter right away. It was noted that the children residing at the shelter have been subject to some form of abuse at point in their lives, and subsequently are deeply affected by the throughout the entirety of their lives. They added that such children try to express their feelings pertaining to the abuse in different ways, which is something tied to their mental health. The ministry further stated that their goal is to create a safe environment for the children who are in need of it and advise the public to refrain from acts that may adversely impact their dignity and safety. And that's my quick update from Maldives. Back to you, Eliana.
Thank you, Steffi. Looking forward to more updates coming from you and the island nation of Maldives. You please take care always.
Thank you so much, Eliana. Please be safe. Reporting live from Maldives, this is Steffi Dihuan, and we live in interesting times.
In other news, protesters have destroyed around a dozen military-owned communications towers in Myanmar, according to witnesses and reports on Wednesday, after the country's self-proclaimed shadow government issued a call for a defensive war against the junta. Protesters said they targeted 11 mobile masts belonging to the military-owned Mytel, one of the country's four main cell networks in the town of Budelin in the central Sagaing region. Our intention is to destroy the military business. Their businesses support them to maintain their power. Therefore, we have to destroy it. A resident involved in the operation told AFP, while attacks on military-owned infrastructure and businesses have been seen before, Tuesday's spate of blasts comes after a call to arms from the so-called National Unity Government, or NUG. The NUG, which claims to be the country's legitimate government, is made up of dissident lawmakers in hiding or exile, many of them from ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi's party. The country has been in chaos since the military seized power in February, sparking mass pro-democracy rallies, followed by a deadly crackdown and renewed fighting with ethnic rebel militias in border areas. More than 1,000 civilians have been killed and nearly 8,000 arrested, according to local observers. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Eliana and I will be back right after this break.
Hello! Ako po si Avon Rosales at may tutuparin akong isang letter sender request ngayong linggo, September 12 sa Larusan Music from 1 to 2 p.m. Dito lamang po sa Net 25. I'll see you guys there.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. on Wednesday night confirmed that the country has welcomed the first Afghan refugees to the Philippines since the Taliban took control of Afghanistan 3 weeks ago. We stay steady where others waver. Tonight, we welcome Afghan nationals, including women, kids, seeking refuge. Our doors are open to those fleeing conflict, persecution, sexual abuse, and death, he said in a tweet. Locsin, however, noted that no further information will be provided to the public for the refugees' safety and privacy. Malacanang last August 17 stated that the Philippines' doors are open to Afghan nationals fleeing Afghanistan to escape the Taliban's rule. There is no specific quota on the number of refugees which may be taken in by the Philippines, but Locsin earlier said the country will only accept refugees on a government-to-government basis. The Philippine Navy has activated its Disaster Response and Recovery Team, or DDRTS, to help communities affected by typhoons Jolina and Kiko. In a statement Thursday, Navy spokesperson Commander Benjo Negranza said these DDRTS, composing of the Naval Task Force NTF-83, were earlier deployed in Marikina City due to the heavy rains brought by Jolina. Negranza also said other PN operating forces in northern Luzon, southern Luzon, and Cebu have also ensured the preparedness of their respective disaster response and recovery teams for humanitarian assistance and disaster response deployment. As this developed, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, reminded all DRRMCS to continue monitoring weather developments and implement preparedness measures. The NDRRMC also advised the public to monitor weather updates, take precautionary measures, heed evacuation notices issued by their local government units, and follow warnings and advisories alongside the observance of minimum health standards for protection against the COVID-19.
Meanwhile, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council said the third quarter National Simultaneous Earthquake Drill, or NSED, set today has been postponed due to Typhoon Jolina and the impending threat of Typhoon Kiko. He said the move is to give the public the chance to monitor the effects of the weather disturbances and take the necessary actions. He added that the new date for the third quarter of the NSED has yet to be determined. The NSED for the first and second quarters of this year was held on March 11 and June 10, respectively. And this is supposedly the country's fifth online NSED following the two online drills in the fourth quarter of 2020.
A fire tore through an overcrowded Indonesian prison in the early hours of Wednesday when most inmates were asleep, killing 41 people and injuring dozens of others. Firefighters extinguished the blaze, which was mostly contained within one block that housed prisoners jailed on drug charges at around 3 a.m. and evacuated the victims. Jakarta Police Chief Fadil Imran earlier told media that 72 had minor injuries. Authorities were still investigating the cause of the incident at Tangerang Penitentiary just outside the capital, Jakarta, but suspected an electrical fault may have been to blame. Authorities said the prison's electrical system had not been upgraded since it was built over 40 years ago in 1972. According to BBC, of the victims, one was reported to be a murder convict. Another had been found guilty of terrorism, and the rest in prison were crimes involving drugs. Dr. Hilwani from Tangerang General Hospital told Reuters some of the bodies were so badly burned they could not be identified. DNA tests are being used. Prison overcapacity is a persistent problem in Indonesian jails.
And here's a view inside the Tangerang Penitentiary on the outskirts of Jakarta. Take a look. Now, this was after the fire tore through the facility in the early morning, killing 41 people and injuring dozens of others, according to officials. The Penitentiary Department's website showed the jail had just over 2,000 inmates, more than 3 times as many prisoners than it was designed to hold. The block where the fire broke out had a maximum capacity of 40 prisoners, but it was housing 120 prisoners. Penitentiary Directorate General spokesperson Rika Aprianti told Metro TV, overcrowded, unsanitary conditions are common in Indonesian prisons, which contain about 270,000 inmates, and jailbreaks are frequent. In 2019, at least 100 prisoners escaped from a jail in Riau Province, Sumatra, after a riot and fire broke out. In April last year, Indonesia released about 29,000 inmates in a bid to stop COVID-19 from rampaging through a prison system known for its unsanitary conditions.
Di sini ada warga juga yang tidur.
ASEAN in Focus will be back after a short break.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision-making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Ang trabaho naman talaga ng maritime group ng PNP is to enforce the maritime
Tayo
laws.
lang yung stricto, pero in other parts of the country, pwede na naman ang tourism.
Definitely, we are ready to respond to a possible spike.
Sapagkat ang aming intensyon ay makatulong lang sa mga tao na wala talagang magamit na gamot.
92 voted for this resolution, which will make it stronger, calling on the Justice Department to come up with more stringent ways to be able to avert these hate crimes against Asian Americans.
Mas marami po tayong magagamit ngayon na mga tools or mga equipment.
Maraming salamat, Weng, at sa buong puwersa ng Balitalakayan sa pagkakataong ito.
Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Weng de la Fuente sa...
At itong Balitalakayan, we live in interesting times.
Welcome back. Typhoon Kiko continues to intensify as it threatens northern Luzon while Tropical Storm Jolina moves out of the country. That according to Pag-asa. Take a look. Now, in a press briefing, meteorologist and Pag-asa weather forecaster Benison Estrajera said that while Jolina maintains its strength, it is now moving northwestward away from the landmass of Luzon. Its center was estimated at 145 kilometers west-northwest of Iba, Zambales, or 175 kilometers west of Dagupan City, Pangasinan. It has maximum sustained winds of 85 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of 115 kilometers per hour while moving at 25 kilometers per hour. Now, only the western portion of Pangasinan, which is Anda, Bolinao, Infanta, Aguilar, Sual, Labrador, Dasol, Bugalyon, Burgos, Mabini, Agno, City of Alaminos, Bani, Lingayen, and Mangatarem, and the northern portion of Zambales, San Antonio, Botolan, San Narciso, San Felipe, Cabangan, Palawig, Iba, Masinloc, Candelaria, and Santa Cruz is still under signal number 1. Pag-asa is now focusing mainly its monitoring on Kiko, which has intensified over the Philippine Sea east of central Luzon. The typhoon was located at 785 kilometers east of Baler, Aurora. Moving westward at 20 kilometers per hour, Kiko has maximum sustained winds of 185 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of 230 kilometers per hour. In the next 24 hours, Habagat, or the southwest monsoon, enhanced by Jolina and Kiko, will also bring moderate to heavy with, at times, intense monsoon rains over Palawan, Mindoro, the provinces of Romblon, Western Visayas, the Zamboanga Peninsula, Tawi-Tawi, Sulu, and Basilan.
Continuing the first webinar entitled Unlocking RCEP for Business, Trade in Goods, held in July, the ASEAN Secretariat, in collaboration with the East Asia Business Council, held a second webinar on 3rd September focusing on Rules of Origin, or ROO, and Customs Procedures and Trade Facilitation, or CPTF rather, of the RCEP agreement. In his opening remarks, Deputy Secretary General DSG for ASEAN Economic Community Satvinder Singh highlighted the importance of trade in goods for ASEAN and how the RCEP agreement can help ASEAN's trade in goods to expand. Let's take a look.
However, in 2020, as all of you know, due to the economic downturn caused by the pandemic, the numbers had gone down slightly to about $2.66 trillion US dollars. And I think this is why all of us in the ASEAN and our private sectors are truly looking forward to the RCEP agreement, hoping that it will, when it comes into force, help to contribute to our economic recovery and our resilience. But RCEP really aims to streamline the different rules that are existing today across all the participating countries into a single set of rules for the 15 participating important global economies of ASEAN, which includes Japan, China, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and of course all of us, 10 ASEAN countries. But in order to take advantage of the opportunities presented by RCEP agreement, I think it's important for businesses to pay attention and to truly navigate the rules and measures related to the rules of origin and trade facilitation.
That even if there is an RCEP ROO wherein most of the ASEAN plus FTA partners are already parties to RCEP, if you are an exporter using the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand FTA, or Atiga, for example, and you are using those FTAs because the tariffs are relatively low at this point, that the ROO that will be used for those FTAs are not the RCEP ROO. You still have to use the Atiga ROO and the ANZ FTA ROO. I'm just reminding us because you might get confused. For example, the trading under AKFTA, for example, we can say that we can use the RCEP ROO. Aside from the obvious that the greater number of parties will allow you to accumulate from more sources, RCEP has adopted a more trade facilitative, co-equal, and alternative rules for most products in the PSR list.
For me, what is even more critical is, the RCEP provisions themselves have committed time frames on, for example, 48 hours that goods should be cleared within 48 hours of arrival, right? And for express shipments within 6 hours of arrival. There are other commitments like the ability to obtain a release of your shipments even before you pay your duties and taxes. Interest to us, of course, for DHL is that RCEP specifically recognizes express clearance, so the ability to clear shipments, time-sensitive shipments. It makes provisions for de minimis thresholds.
A recent study by the Peterson Institute for International Economics suggests that the RCEP agreement will further expand trade among its members, directly contributing to their economic growth. Based on the study, by 2025, the RCEP agreement is projected to boost its members' exports by over 10%, and by 2030, at around 0.2% to the GDP growth in the region. The webinar highlighted that the realization of RCEP's potential will depend on its timely entry into force and the full, effective, and inclusive implementation of the agreement by its members.
In other news in the region, Singapore is ranked the top jurisdiction for multinational companies to base subsidiaries or entities from a governance and regulatory standpoint. That according to an inaugural report ranking over 160 jurisdictions globally on both the cost and the speed of doing business. Now, the Mercator Entity Management or MEM report 2021 outlined the challenges that business leaders, general counsels, and corporate secretarial teams face in countries where multinationals with global portfolios have their entities. It includes the busiest regions in terms of regulatory activity, the average cost of regulating entities in each jurisdiction, and the overall time taken to complete activities. Singapore was followed closely by Australia and the United Kingdom as the most favorable jurisdictions. The report also highlights that all three have the ideal combination of low cost levels and shorter timeframes for completing a range of regulatory activities such as board of director, shareholder decisions, officer changes, and power of attorney activities. Kazakhstan had the lowest ranking, with South Korea as the next lowest, followed by Indonesia. And all have a combination of relatively higher cost levels and less competitive timeframes or duration.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi will pay a short visit to Cambodia as part of a tour of 4 countries from September 10 to 15 to further strengthen Cambodia and China relations. This is his second visit to the kingdom since the beginning of the pandemic. It is widely assumed that Yi will attend the inauguration presided over by Prime Minister Hun Sen of the newly constructed Morodok Techo National Stadium, located in Prek Tasek commune of Chroy Changvar district, as it is scheduled to take place while he is in Cambodia. Kin Phea, director of the Royal Academy of Cambodia's International Relations Institute, told the Post on September 8 that Yi's visit emphasized the importance of Cambodia-China relations to China's broader regional strategy. Lim Mengho, Deputy Director of the Mekong Center for Strategic Studies at the Asian Vision Institute, told the Post on September 8 that Yi's visit will advance the strategic interests of Cambodia and China and will mainly be focused on efforts to fight COVID-19. Yi's visit comes following a foray by U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris to Singapore and Vietnam in August to strengthen ties and expand economic cooperation with two major U.S. partners in the Indo-Pacific region.
尊敬的柬埔寨王国首相洪森亲王，中华人民共和国。
And back here in the country's export performance continued to slow in July this year, according to data released by the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, today. Now, based on the external trade performance data, exports grew 12.7%. The third consecutive month exports slowed this year. According to a Business Mirror report, the slowdown started in May 2021 when exports slowed to a year-on-year growth of 30.8% from the year-on-year growth of 74.1% posted in April, the highest for this year. Now, export performance, however, remained more robust compared to last year, when the country's earnings contracted 8.9% in July 2020. On the top 10 major commodity groups in terms of value of exports, 9 recorded annual increases, led by coconut oil at 207.7%. This was followed by cathodes, sections of cathodes of refined copper, which grew 84.6%, and ignition wiring set and other wiring sets used in vehicles, aircrafts, and ships at 28.6%.
Nearly 1 million Filipinos lost their jobs since the pandemic began, according to the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA. In a budget presentation at the Senate of the Philippines on Wednesday, NEDA said after the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, released the latest employment numbers, it found that there was a decline of 3.4 million jobs between June and July. With that, the net job loss of the economy is 800,000. This means that these were the jobs that were lost between January 2020 and July 2021. Socioeconomic Planning Secretary Carl Kendrick T. Chua said job creation is highly correlated with the level of quarantine and lately the heightened risk due to the Delta variant. Based on the presentation, when the country moved to lower quarantine restriction levels, there was job creation. The largest number of jobs created was recorded when the country moved from ECQ in April 2020 to GCQ in July 2020, reaching 7.5 million jobs. According to the Business Mirror report, Chua also said there was a net job creation between January and June 2021, a positive 2.5 million jobs created. However, given the latest preliminary results of the Labor Force Survey, or LFS, in July, the country lost the second highest number of jobs since April last year as the economy shed 3.4 million jobs. He traced the loss of jobs to the decline in farm employment triggered by the rainy season and concerns of workers about catching the Delta variant of the virus.
Meanwhile, staying in the country, National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, said the replication of the Regional Geographic Information Network, or RGIN, geoportal project in pilot regions 1, 6, 8, 9, and 12, and 13 will help improve research and development and craft evidence-based policies in the country. In a speech during the virtual launch of the Geoportal Innovation Hub Replication Project on Wednesday, Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Kendrick Chua highlighted the importance of digital transformation within the government to strengthen policymaking and improve public service delivery. Take a look.
RGIN has been instrumental in improving the region's collection, management, and sharing of map data. This project has been effective in using Geographic Information System or GIS technology for planning and forecasting, problem solving, research and development, decision making, and illustrating patterns and stories. This has enabled members and stakeholders to have better access to map data using an automated and internet-based data sharing platform. With the Argin GeoPortal, we will be able to collect and analyze vast amounts of data in various domains, minimize information gaps, and create evidence-based policies. As we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, NEDA is putting innovation at the core of our efforts to successfully transition into an upper middle income country by the end of 2022. It encourages open collaboration among stakeholders in the STI ecosystem towards making government more transparent. This will help facilitate ease in transactions and foster better trust between the people and government institutions. The pilot implementation in regions 1, 6, 8, 9, 12, and 13 will also initiate a shift in mindsets to build a culture of using data science and innovation that will allow for effective planning and decision-making. This is crucial as we prepare for the regional and sub-regional development plans for the next administration.
The news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Eliana and I will be back right after this short break.
Mapupuno ng saya, impormasyon at inspirasyon ang hapon mo sa Afternoon Power. Handog sa inyo ng Net25. Sasabay sa inyong tanghalian ang inyong Happy Time Barkada at 12 noon. Alamin ang mga pangyayari sa ASEAN nations, ASEAN in Focus at 2 p.m. Ang inyong paboritong awit komentaryo kasama si Leo Obligar sa Piskante ng Bayan. At mga balita sa iba't ibang panig ng bansa, hatid sa atin sa Aguila Probinsya. Siksik ang hapon mo mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, ang inyong Afternoon Power sa Net25.
Start your day right! Tara na! Simulan na ang excitement and happiness kada umaga.
Welcome back. Singapore's new Wildlife Forensics Center aims to help in the fight against smuggling networks by analyzing seized body parts from endangered animals to determine where they originated from. Let's take a look.
Well, not the reason, but so that there wouldn't be any confusion in the analysis. Sam is really good at that.
Fascinating.
So last year we got seizures in terms of very small items.
Further on to that, we do collect samples from these seized specimens. And for example, when we seize the ivory and pangolin, before we actually crushed them and got rid of them, incinerated them, so that it doesn't go back into the market, we actually sampled from them so that we can actually access the rich source of information that DNA sequences actually give us.
Over the past 2 decades, the Association for Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, has sought to expand beyond its role as an intergovernmental organization towards strengthening the region as a community of shared aspirations and welfare for the 654 million population of ASEAN. Of particular importance is engagement of the region's youth. Take a look.
Thank you very much, Eliana, for joining me today here on ASEAN in Focus. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Alma. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Eliana Faith Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
ASEAN in Focus will be here tomorrow, same place, same time. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
Iba't ibang sakuna at kalamidad ang nararanasan ng bansa. Kapag may banta ng panganib, kailangan